Emma walked slowly through the quiet corridors of Phoenix Cemetery, holding a bouquet of pure white flowers and an old photograph. The soft light of dusk filtered through the ancient trees, creating a space that was both peaceful and sad. When she reached the grave of her daughter, Kiala, Emma collapsed to the ground with difficulty, placing the photo and flowers on the cold headstone. "A year from now, my love," her trembling voice broke the silence of the place. "It feels like yesterday I was here, laughing and playing together. I wish things could be different." Emma gently caressed the face on the photo, the memories of her daughter still vivid in her mind. Every smile, every hug, every painful goodbye, until that fateful day. Kiala Scott was once an active and lively girl, 28 years old, working as a graphic designer at a marketing company. She was known for her creativity, sharp sense of humor, and ability to brighten up any space with her smile. The news of her death 3 years ago was a devastating blow to Emma and everyone who knew Kiala. A car accident took her life suddenly. Kiala was returning from a business trip when the car skidded on a wet curve and hit a lamppost. The force of the impact made it difficult for rescuers to identify the body, and Kiala was pronounced dead at the scene. The tragic details of the accident were accepted without any doubt at the time, due to the reported bad weather conditions that night. Her passing left a void in the life of her mother, who struggled to come to terms with the reality of a world without her beloved daughter. Kiala was an only child, so the loss was devastating for Emma, who not only lost her presence but also her only close family member. The emotional impact on Emma was profound. The visits to the grave became a sacred ritual, moments where Emma felt she could connect with Kiala. They say time heals all wounds, but the pain only seemed to deepen over the years. Emma continued to sigh as she looked at the gravestone, the words "Dear Daughter" engraved on it making her wonder, "Is there anything I could have done to prevent your death? My love, I miss you so much." Suddenly, the sound of sobbing tore through the silence, pulling Emma back to reality. She looked around and noticed a small girl, her face covered in tears, her eyes filled with deep sadness. The little girl sat beside the grave, crying and saying, "Mommy, why did you die? Mommy, you're not here with me. I love you so much." Tears rolled down the little girl's cheeks, and Emma felt as if her heart was being pierced. The innocence and confusion in the little girl's eyes hit her like a punch in the gut, bringing a new mystery that Emma had never expected that day. Emma stood up, worried and curious, and approached the little girl. "Hello, are you okay?" she asked, her voice filled with maternal concern. The little girl looked up, her face still streaked with tears and a confused expression. "I always come here," she cried. "This is my mother's grave, but why is it called something else? It says Kiala Scott, but that's not my mother's name. I'm so confused." The innocence and confusion in the little girl's eyes hit Emma like a new shock. She sat down next to her, her heart aching for the child before her. "Let's try to figure this out together, shall we?" Emma said, placing her hand on the little girl's shoulder. "What's your name?" "My name is Samantha Lewis," the little girl replied with a faint smile between her tears. Emma nodded, determined to help Samantha find the answers she needed. Perhaps Emma thought that helping Samantha might bring some peace to the shadows of the past that still haunted her heart. "Samantha, tell me more about your mother," Emma said softly, trying to open the conversation to clear up the confusion between them. The little girl wiped away a tear and looked at Emma with hesitation but a need to share. "My mother's name was Anna Lewis. I remember her always smiling and singing to me. She left me when I was 5, Samantha began, her voice shaking as if struggling with grief. Just then, Jorge, Samantha's father, approached. "Yes, I brought Samantha here many times to try to comfort her, to tell her that her mother was resting here, but I didn't understand why the name on the tombstone was different. I always thought there was an administrative error or something." Jorge said in a voice filled with confusion and disappointment, looking at the tombstone with sadness and despair. "Anna was everything to us, and after she died, everything changed. I didn't receive any official paperwork about the burial, only verbal assurances from the hospital and the funeral home. When I saw Kiala Scott's name here, I didn't know what to think. We were so devastated that we didn't check as thoroughly as we should have," he continued, the weight of memories and unanswered doubts clear in his voice. Emma listened with understanding, feeling Jorge and Samantha's pain. "Jorge, I believe something went wrong here, and I'm determined to find out the truth. Not just for my daughter, but for Anna and you," Emma said, affirming her commitment to solving the confusion on the headstone. Jorge nodded. grateful for Emma's determination. "Thank you, Emma. It's important that someone help us understand what really happened. Samantha deserves to know where her mother is truly laid to rest," he replied, placing his hand on Samantha's shoulder, who was seeking comfort under her father's protection. Feeling the pain and uncertainty she was going through, Emma felt her heart sink. "I'll help you find answers. We need to review the cemetery records. There may have been a mistake or something was overlooked," Emma said firmly, determined to help. They decided to go to the cemetery office together to look up the records. "We'll ask to see the records of the graves in this area. Something's definitely wrong and we'll find out," Emma said, trying to sound confident to cheer up the little girl next to her. At the office, Emma approached the clerk in a low, determined voice. "Please, we need to see the records of the grave registered under Kla Scott. There's a possibility that there's been a mistake and we need to clear this up because a child has lost their mother," she said. The clerk, a middle-aged man with a tired expression, nodded and began searching through the records. "This is unusual, but I'll check to see what happened," he said. Emma and Samantha waited, holding hands, as the man searched the computer and paper records. Emma turned to Samantha, giving her an encouraging smile. "We'll figure it out, honey. Whatever happens, we'll face it together," she said, taking her hand. Samantha nodded, squeezing Emma's hand, seeking comfort in her promise. After a few minutes, the clerk looked up with a surprised look on his face. "There was an internal notice about a mistake in the registration of some graves a few years ago. I can't give you the details right now, but I'll conduct a more thorough investigation," he announced. Emma felt a mixture of relief and concern. "Please do it. We need answers," she insisted. The clerk nodded and pledged to do her best to find out the truth. They thanked him and left the office. Emma felt one step closer to solving the mystery that bound two families in a web of mistakes and secrets. Emma decided to seek professional help to sort out the situation. The next morning, she found herself in the office of Dr. Raphael Adrian, a man whose calm demeanor always inspired confidence. "Thank you for seeing me, doctor. I'm here with a very sensitive and personal matter." Emma began, her voice strained by months of uncertainty and pain. Dr. Adrian nodded, encouraging her to continue. "Please let me know how I can help you, Mrs. Adams." Emma took a deep breath, gathering the strength to explain the complex and delicate situation. "There has been a confusion about a grave in the local cemetery that is believed to contain my daughter's body, but now there is suspicion that someone else may be buried there." The doctor listened intently, his hands clasped on the table. "I understand, and how do you think I can help with this?" he asked, keeping his demeanor professional. Emma further explained, "We need a DNA test to confirm the identity of the bodies. I know this is not a common request, but it is extremely important to me and a young girl is involved in this." Dr. Adrian nodded, realizing the importance of the request. Doing a DNA test on a lobe can be complicated but not impossible. We will need legal permission to proceed. "Of course I have the necessary documents." Emma confirmed that she would begin processing the necessary paperwork immediately. "As soon as we have the permission, we can proceed, doctor." Adrian began to make notes in his notebook. "I will prepare everything on my end to ensure that when we get the permission, there will be no delays. I understand that this situation needs to be resolved as quickly as possible. Thank you so much, doctor. Your help has been more comforting than I can express. I hope that with your help, we can bring some peace to all involved," Emma said with her plan in place, feeling like she was finally in control of the situation, ready to face whatever revelations might come. That evening, Emma sat on the porch, daydreaming out over the garden she and Claire had tended together. The sky was tinged with the colors of dusk, the flowers seemingly absorbing every last ray of light. As she waited for the DNA test results, Emma's mind began to wander through memories, bringing back moments she had shared with Claire, each moment seen in a new light. She remembered a particular afternoon just before Claire went missing. "Mother, there are things in this world that are necessary even when they don't seem right," Claire had said mysteriously as she worked the soil around a newly planted tree. At the time, Emma hadn't thought much about the words, but now the words echoed in her head, full of hidden meaning. "What do you mean, child?" Emma whispered to herself, her anxiety growing. Another detail that now seemed strange was the way Claire sometimes looked far away, as if she were carrying a secret too heavy to share. Emma remembered one particular night when she had noticed a worried look on her daughter's face at dinner. "Are you okay, dear?" she had asked Claire. Claire had only smiled and assured her mother that everything was fine, but her eyes had said otherwise. "Mother, you should have asked better," Emma thought, kicking herself for her hesitation. The weeks leading up to Claire's disappearance also came rushing back to Emma. Claire had begun to take frequent calls, leaving the room to speak in a low voice. Emma had always respected her daughter's privacy, but now she wished she had asked more, not accepted so easily. "Who's on the other end of the phone line?" Emma wondered, her voice cracking with emotion, the sense of loss settling over her like a cold mist. As she reflected on these fragments of memory, Emma began to see more clearly and unsettlingly about her last days with Claire. Perhaps all of this was just a premonition of something much larger to come. She concluded, a painful doubt forming in her heart. It's like putting together a puzzle without all the pieces, each piece revealing only a part of the truth. A few days later, Emma was informed that the DNA test results were ready. She sat in a chair in Dr. Adrian's office, her body tense with anticipation. She gripped the edge of the chair, her eyes fixed on the envelope the doctor had just opened. "The DNA results are back, Doctor," Adrian announced, his neutral tone trying to soften the impact of the news he was delivering. Emma took a deep breath, feeling her heart beat faster by the second. "The lobes tested do not match my daughter's DNA," Claire the doctor revealed, looking directly at Emma. The room seemed to spin around her, and for a moment Emma felt as if all the air had been sucked out of the space. This can't be happening," she whispered, her voice almost breaking. Tears began to form in her eyes, the weight of reality pressing down on her chest. Emma tried to process the implications of those words. "So who is buried under my daughter's headstone, and where is Claire?" she asked, her voice filled with pain and confusion, each word a punch that shattered the fragile hope she had held onto. Dr. Adrian reached for a tissue, his eyes full of sympathy. "I'm so sorry, Emma. I understand that this raises more questions than answers. I need to understand more about what happened." Emma, her resolve growing stronger despite her devastation, said, "I need to know where my daughter is. I need to find her." Her words were resolute, reflecting the resolve of a mother who would not rest until she discovered the truth about her child. Dr. Adrian nodded, recognizing the strength in this woman. "I'll help you as much as I can, Emma. We can start by checking with local agencies and perhaps hiring a detective. It's not an easy road, but we'll do everything we can to find the answers you seek." Emma left the doctor's office with a mixture of shock and determination. She knew the journey ahead would be difficult and possibly painful, but she also knew she had no choice but to move forward. "For Claire, I'll do anything," she whispered to herself, looking up at the cloudy sky for comfort. The fight to discover her daughter's fate had only just begun. The next day, Emma went to Detective Brandon Parker's office. Brandon stood up to greet her as she entered. "Mrs. Adams, it's good to see you again." He greeted, his eyes filled with determination and an understanding of the pain Emma was going through. Emma entered Mr. Parker's office with a heavy heart. "Hello, Mr. Parker, thank you for seeing me," she said, trying to keep her composure. Mr. Parker invited her to sit in the chair in front of his desk, which was filled with papers and files. Emma sat down, placing her bag next to the chair, and took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the situation on her shoulders. "I've come to see you on a very serious matter," Emma began, her voice shaking but determined. "I've discovered that the remains in my daughter Claire's grave are not hers. I need to find out where my daughter's body is, or if she's still alive." Brandon Parker nodded, his face becoming more serious. "This is a very serious matter, Emma. Do you have any more information that could help us begin our investigation? Any detail could be important." Mr. Parker pulled out a notebook and pen, ready to write down everything Emma shared. "After the DNA test showed that the remains weren't Claire's, I started thinking about the last few days before she went missing. I remember strange phone calls, actions that I didn't understand at the time." Emma began recounting everything she remembered, each detail now a clue to something bigger. Brandon listened intently, occasionally interrupting to ask for clarification. "You mentioned phone calls. Do you know who was on the other end? Are there any recordings of those calls?" Mr. Parker began to form an investigative plan, thinking about the first steps. At the end of the conversation, he looked at Emma with determination in his eyes. "We'll start by checking those calls and interviewing people who were close to Claire at the time. I'll do everything in my power to find your daughter. You're not alone in this." Emma felt a wave of gratitude and hope at those words. She knew the road ahead would be difficult, but Brandon's presence gave her the strength to face anything. They met at a small coffee shop, the conference table covered with notes and photographs. Brandon pointed to a group photo, some of them circled in red. "Emma, I've been talking to some of Claire's former colleagues and I found out that she's been involved with people who are involved in dangerous activities. These people," he pointed to the photos, "are well known in the local underworld." Emma looked at the photos, feeling a chill. "Oh my gosh, Brandon, this is more serious than I thought. How did my daughter get involved with people like this? What did she do?" Her voice was filled with fear and surprise, but also determination. "We need to know more to understand what led Claire to the choices she made. We're slowly piecing together the pieces, Emma. I've also noticed that Claire has been going to places she wouldn't normally go," Brandon continued, opening a map with several marked points. "These places are often associated with illegal activities. It seems like she's trying to get in or maybe being coerced into participating." Emma took in all the information, memorizing every name and location. "We need to get to these places. Brandon, we need to talk to more people. If Claire is involved with these people, it could be dangerous, but it could also be the key to finding out where she is now." Brandon nodded, looking concerned but also determined. "I agree. I'll arrange for us to get to these places safely. I'll contact some people who can help us cover or provide more information, but I need you to stay safe. I don't want you to take unnecessary risks." Emma looked straight at Brandon, her eyes filled with determination. "I will do anything. Brandon, nothing will stop me from finding out the truth about my daughter. I need to know what happened to Claire, and I will go to the ends of the earth if I have to." Emma's determination was clear, a strength born of a mother's unconditional love for her daughter. Brandon saw this determination, knowing that together they would face whatever lay ahead, no matter the cost. In the car, they drove through the less traveled streets of Phoenix, areas that Emma rarely visited. Brandon drove carefully, his eyes always alert. The places we're going to are known hotbeds of illegal activity. We need to be extremely careful here. Emma looked out the window, observing the old facades and shadowy alleys. "I never knew Phoenix had places like this," she said, her voice low, reflecting the tension she felt. "How did Claire get involved in this? What was she thinking?" Brandon replied, stopping the car in front of an old warehouse. "Let's start here. I heard this place might be a meeting place for some of Claire's contacts." They got out of the car and approached the warehouse, keeping to the shadows. Emma's heart beat faster, each sound amplified by the silence of the area. Brandon put a finger to his lips, signaling her to keep quiet. They glanced through the dirty windows, trying to see if anyone was in the warehouse. They saw a few people gathered around a table, talking quietly. Brandon pulled Emma out of sight. "These must be some of Claire's contacts. We can't confront them directly, it's too dangerous. I'll take some pictures and try to identify them later." He pulled a small camera from his jacket. Emma remained hidden, feeling scared but also brave. "We have to move on, Brandon. As much as this scares me, I need to know the truth. Claire is my daughter, I'll do anything for her." Emma's determination only strengthened Brandon's resolve, who nodded, understanding the depth of her commitment. They got back into the car together, preparing to head to their next location, each clue bringing them closer to the truth about Claire. Back in the office, Brandon was reviewing the photos from the warehouse when the phone rang from an unknown number. He hesitated to answer, putting the phone to his ear. "Hello," his voice was careful, alert to any signs of danger on the other end of the line. A distorted, cold voice said, "You're meddling in something that's not your business. Stop this investigation right now." Brandon felt a chill run down his spine, but his voice remained calm. "Who is this? Why do you want me to stop?" There was a long moment of silence before the voice answered, menacingly, "We don't want you to know who we are. Stop interfering, or you'll regret it." Brandon ended the call quietly, holding the phone in his hand, his heart pounding at the serious threat that had abruptly ended the call. Despite his fear, Brandon knew he couldn't back down. He thought about Emma and all the hardships she was going through. He couldn't leave himself alone in this painful search. "They're trying to scare us," Brandon whispered to himself, a mix of anger and determination rising within him. But that just proves we're on the right track. There's definitely something big they're hiding and they're desperate to keep it secret. He decided to call Emma to explain the situation and the threats he'd received. Emma, I got a threatening call. They told us to stop the investigation, Brandon said, his voice worried but firm. I just wanted you to know. He listened carefully, waiting for her response, ready for any sign of hesitation from Emma. Emma, her face as high as ever, replied with unmatched courage. Brandon, it's terrible, but we can't let them scare us. We have to keep going. If they're trying to scare us, then we're definitely getting closer to the truth. Her voice was filled with worry but also with a steely determination. I'm fine, Emma. And you're right, we'll keep going, but we'll have to be more careful, Brandon replied, feeling strengthened by Emma's resolve. Together, they agreed to take extra security measures, knowing that every step from now on would require more courage and ingenuity than ever before. Nothing can stop us, Emma. We'll find the truth no matter what. Brandon concluded, preparing for what was to come, knowing that the road ahead would be even more dangerous. Brandon's investigation continued relentlessly. He and Emma were in a car, parked discreetly a safe distance away from an old abandoned factory on the outskirts of Phoenix. The location had been mentioned in a conversation he'd overheard from a source Brandon kept on the street. This is the place, Emma said. My contact said it was used for illegal meetings, and she mentioned Claire's name a few times. Brandon scanned the building through his binoculars, his eyes taking in every detail. Emma felt a mix of worry and excitement. Do you think she could be there now, she asked, trying to peer through the dirty windows without giving away her tracks. I don't know. Brandon replied in a low but determined voice. But something big is definitely going on here and we need to find out what it is. They decided to wait until dark to go inside, since it would be too dangerous by then. Brandon suggested, we'll wait until dark. It's too risky to go in. Now they put away their telescopes and checked the guns that were hidden under their coats. Emma nodded, knowing that caution was their best ally. As time passed, the daylight began to fade, plunging the building into darkness. Brandon checked his watch, then turned to Emma. It's time. We need to be quick and quiet. Are you ready? Emma took a deep breath, nodding vigorously. I'm ready. Let's find my daughter. With careful steps, they approached the building. The large door swung open, as if someone had left in a hurry and forgotten to close it. Brandon entered first, Emma right behind, both alert to any sound or movement inside. The interior of the factory was dark and silent. Only the sound of dripping water and the squeaking of rats echoed in the vast space. As they explored, they found some signs that the place had been used recently, including a bucket of tobacco cups, a few cans of food, and most importantly, a woman's coat that Emma recognized immediately. This is Claire's coat. She was here, Emma said, her voice choked with emotion. Brandon put his hand on her shoulder, a comforting gesture. We're getting close, Emma. We'll find out what happened. Continuing their search, hopeful and alert, Brandon and Emma carefully made their way through the dark corridors of the factory when they heard voices drifting from a brightly lit room up ahead. Brandon motioned for Emma to be quiet and they approached the slightly open door. They quietly hid themselves and saw a woman with her back turned, talking to someone else who was not clearly visible. Emma watched closely, her heart pounding as she realized the woman was Claire. Claire, she whispered to herself, her voice thick with emotion. Unable to contain herself, Emma stepped into the room. Claire, she called out louder than she intended, her voice thick with emotion. The woman turned, surprised and alert. Who is it? How do you know my name? She asked quickly, her voice defensive, trying to figure out who was calling her. Emma felt a wave of emotion at the sight of her daughter's face, though it had changed with time and circumstance. It's me, Emma, your mother. I've been looking for you all this time, she said, moving closer to Claire, her arms outstretched in a gesture of peace. Claire, I know it's you. We've been looking for you for so long. Emma's voice choked with emotion. Claire looked hesitantly at Emma with a mixture of confusion and recognition. Mother, the resistance in her gaze began to fade as she saw the sincerity in her mother's eyes. Mother, you shouldn't be here. It's too dangerous. You have to leave immediately. I can't risk it to protect you, Claire said, her voice trembling with worry. Emma stepped forward, not letting go, holding Claire's hands gently but firmly. You're not going anywhere, Claire. I won't let you face this alone. Wherever you are, I need to be there with you. We're together no matter what. Claire tried to protest, but fear was evident on her face. "Mom, I don't want you to get hurt because of me," she said, her voice filled with pain and regret. Emma squeezed Claire's hand, looking deep into her daughter's eyes. "There's no place in the world I'd rather be than by your side. Nothing will ever separate us, my child. We'll figure this out together." Seeing the determination in her mother's eyes, Claire realized that arguing was futile. With tears in her eyes, she slowly nodded. "I had to do this, Mom. I had to disappear. It was the only way to protect us all." Her voice was choked with pain and regret. Emma moved closer and hugged Claire, holding her tight. "It doesn't matter. What matters is that you're alive and we can help you. We can protect you." Emma comforted her daughter, while Brandon watched the scene with ever-vigilant awareness that they could still be in danger. After their reconciliation, Emma and Claire sat in a secluded corner of the same abandoned building, sharing an emotional moment together. 5.0005.000 Ket qua dik. Ket qua ban ditch. Claire began to explain, her face showing signs of exhaustion and worry. "When I got involved with this group of people, I didn't know where it was going. It started out as small things, seemingly harmless things, but then I realized I was getting myself into something much bigger and more dangerous than I could have imagined." Emma listened, her heart tightening with every word Claire spoke. "They started threatening my friends, our family. I was scared, Mom. They said the only way to keep everyone safe was for me to disappear." Claire paused, swallowing, the pain evident in her eyes. "I didn't know what else to do. I went away, changed my identity, everything to protect the people I loved. I wanted to be honest, but my every move was being watched. It's only recently that I've had some breathing room, but it wasn't a real life." Claire sighed, looking resigned. Emma took Claire's hand, her hands shaking. "Claire, what you've been through has been so hard, and I can hardly imagine. But now that we know the truth, your father and I will help you. We will find a way to end this, to bring you home." Emma's voice was determined, trying to inject hope into a hopeless situation. Claire looked at her mother, her eyes filled with exhaustion. "I'm so tired, Mum, tired of hiding, of living in fear. I just want to go home, but I'm worried about what going back could mean for all of us." Emma looked at Claire, her eyes sparkling with sympathy. "Claire, what you did was so risky, and I'm so sorry I didn't know. But right now we need to focus on dealing with your situation." Claire bowed her head, her voice shaking. "I know, Mom. Don't be mad. I'm sorry for everything that happened. I just wanted to protect my family, and I didn't know that I would cause more harm than good." Emma gently stroked Claire's hair, trying to comfort her. "We're going to need a lawyer, someone who can help us navigate the legal issues of me coming back. Besides, we're going to have to talk to the police, explain everything that happened and why I faked my death." Claire nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Thank you, Mom. I don't know if I deserve all this effort after everything I've done, but I'm grateful that you're here." Emma hugged Claire tightly, overwhelmed with emotion. "I'm your daughter, and nothing in this world can change that. We're going to get through this together. It's going to take time and it won't be easy, but we're strong. We always are." Emma's determined voice not only brought new hope to both of them, but also strengthened the bond that fear and uncertainty had shaken. More than ever, they needed each other to rebuild their lives that had been so altered. Emma took Claire home, and after a while of living together, the phone rang one day. Emma hesitated before picking it up, a feeling of anxiety rushing through her. "Hello," she said, her voice shaking. On the other end of the line was a distorted, threatening voice. "You and your detective are interfering in something that is none of your business. Back off now or there will be dire consequences." The threat was so clear and direct that Emma's heart raced. She took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. "I don't know what you're talking about. We're just trying to help my daughter," Emma replied, trying to hide the tremor in her voice. The threatening voice continued, "We're not kidding. This is bigger than you can imagine. If you continue, we can't guarantee the safety of you and your loved ones." After the call ended abruptly, Emma still held the phone in her hand, her body frozen with fear. When Brandon, her best friend and fellow detective, arrived later, Emma told him about the call. Her face was worried and scared. "Brandon, they threatened me. My mother is afraid of what they might do. Maybe we should stop." The uncertainty in Emma's voice made Brandon listen seriously. "Emma, I understand your fear and it's completely justified. But if we stop now, those people won't be punished. We need to be careful, of course, but we also need to continue. I'm here with you and we'll make sure everything is done as safely as possible." Brandon's determination gave Emma some comfort, and she nodded slowly, realizing that no matter how dangerous it was, the truth about Claire needed to be discovered. A few days after the threatening call, Emma and Brandon decided to step up their defenses. They met at a local coffee shop, choosing a secluded corner to discuss their next steps. "We need to be more strategic," Brandon said, looking around to make sure no one was listening. "I'll contact some of my colleagues to increase your security and maybe install some surveillance systems at home." Emma nodded in agreement. "I trust you, Brandon. I just don't want anyone else to be threatened anymore. It's bad enough that I'm involved in this." Emma's concern was clear, every line on her face showing the weight of fear and responsibility she felt for those around her. "I understand, Emma, and I won't let anything happen to you. We'll find out who's behind this and make sure they pay for what they've done." Brandon's steady voice conveyed the confidence that Emma desperately needed at that moment. He pulled out his phone and dialed, and after a few moments he began speaking softly, describing the situation and asking for help. When he hung up, Brandon looked at Emma with a more relaxed expression. "My colleagues will begin night patrols around your house. Also, a tech friend will install cameras and an alarm system tomorrow." Emma felt a wave of relief wash over her, knowing she wasn't alone in this fight. "Thanks, Brandon. I don't know what I would have done without your help." She squeezed his hand briefly, a gesture of gratitude and companionship. Over the next few days, with new security measures in place, Emma and Brandon continued their investigation with renewed determination. After weeks of intensive investigation and countless sleepless nights, they finally gathered enough evidence to build a solid case against the gang involved in Claire's fake disappearance and subsequent threats. They had collected documents, audio recordings, and videos that not only linked gang members to criminal activities, but also proved their direct involvement in Claire's case. Brandon carefully contacted a police unit that specialized in organized crime and corruption. They arranged a meeting at a safe location, away from prying eyes. During the meeting, Brandon and Emma handed over all the documents they had collected, explaining in detail each piece of evidence and how each piece linked to the crimes. The officers from the specialized unit were impressed with the depth and scope of the investigation that Brandon and Emma had conducted. They acted quickly, using the information provided to organize a campaign to arrest those involved. With the help of a tactical team, they conducted a series of coordinated raids on several of the gang's hideouts. The operation was a huge success, with many members of the gang arrested, including leaders who were caught off guard and unable to react or destroy additional evidence. Authorities also recovered a large amount of documents and electronic material, which further strengthened the case against the gang. Emma was there when the news of the arrest was confirmed. She felt a wave of relief and finality, knowing that the fight and risk she had taken had finally brought justice. "We did it, Brandon. Justice has finally been served," she said, her eyes brimming with tears of relief and gratitude. Brandon stood beside Emma, sharing her sense of accomplishment. "You were amazing throughout this process, Emma. Your courage and determination were key to getting us this far." Together, they watched the proceedings begin against the criminals, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction at having helped make the streets safer and honoring Claire's fight to protect her family. On a quiet afternoon after the successful arrests, Claire, Emma, and Brandon gathered at a small cafe to celebrate their victory. Sitting at the table with them, Claire held Emma and Brandon's hands, looking at them with deep gratitude. "I never thought we would get here." Claire's voice was choked with emotion. "Mum, Brandon, I owe you both my life. Without your courage and determination, I don't know how I would have had the strength to face all of this." Emma smiled at her daughter, squeezing her hand affectionately. "Kelly, you are my daughter, and there is nothing in this world that I would not do for you. Seeing you safe and justice served is all I could ever want." Brandon, also filled with emotion, added, "That's right, Claire. It's been a difficult journey, but you've shown incredible strength throughout. Helping you and your mother is something I do with all my heart. I'm just relieved that it's all over." Claire looked at them both, tears glistening in her eyes. "You guys not only fought for me, but you gave me a chance to start over. Now all I want is to live a life worthy of all this effort. Thank you for believing in me even when things seemed so dark." Emma and Brandon smiled, feeling a mixture of faith and happiness. "No need to thank me, Claire. We are family and family takes care of each other," Emma said, while Brandon nodded in agreement. "Exactly," he said, "and now we're going to move forward together." These moments of acknowledgement and gratitude only strengthened their bond, affirming their commitment to supporting each other no matter what the future brought. In the cemetery where it all began, Emma and Claire walked slowly together through the rows of graves until they reached the place that had become the center of so much grief and mystery. The sky was cloudy, and a light wind was rustling the leaves of the trees, bringing a solemn silence. Emma looked at the headstone that still bore Claire's name, and she held a new plaque in her hand, one that would be engraved with the real name of the woman who had been hidden behind Claire's identity. "We're here to make things right, KLA. It's time to right the wrongs of the past," Emma said, her voice firm but filled with emotion. Claire nodded, helping her mother remove the old headstone and install the new one. "I never imagined it would end like this. It's strange to be here, Mom, not as someone who's been buried, but as someone who still has a chance to right the wrongs." Mother and daughter worked together, both physically and symbolically, to reconstruct their lives. "Your name will now be remembered as it should be, and the person who rests here can finally rest in peace," Emma said as they finished installing the new headstone, stepping back to observe the correct name now clearly engraved on the headstone. Anna Lewis, the real name of the woman who had been hidden behind Claire's identity. KLA placed fresh flowers in front of the new headstone, her eyes filling with tears. "Mom, I'm sorry for everything that happened, and thank you for always being there for me." Even though she didn't deserve it, Claire looked at Emma with a mixture of gratitude and regret. Emma hugged Claire, saying, "We'll get through this together. What matters is that you're here and we're making things right. That's what family is. They support each other no matter what." They emerged from the grave, not only to reveal the truth but also to close a chapter in their lives, hoping that they could start a new life together, stronger as the investigation progressed and things slowly returned to normal. As the investigation dragged on, Jorge and Claire grew closer. They began to share their lives, their fears, and their hopes. One afternoon, after a long work session reviewing documents and planning the next steps in the investigation, Jorge and Claire found themselves in a small cafe near Brandon's office. Jorge looked at Claire, noticing her dedication to finding the truth. "Claire, I've always known you to be an incredibly strong and determined woman," he said, his voice filled with admiration. "Seeing you fight so hard for your family has made me respect you even more." Claire smiled, touched by Jorge's words. "Thank you, Jorge. It's been a challenging journey, but not having to face it alone has made all the difference. Your support, as well as Emma and Samantha's, has given me the strength to keep going." As their meetings became more frequent, Jorge and Claire's mutual respect and admiration slowly transformed into deeper feelings. One afternoon, while they were walking together in the park, Jorge decided to open up. "Claire, over the past few months, I've started to feel something special for you. You've become a very important part of my life," he confessed, his heart pounding at the vulnerability of his words. Claire paused, looking at Jorge with a mixture of surprise and happiness in her eyes. "I feel the same way, Jorge. I'm afraid I have to say more, not wanting to complicate things, but I'm glad you feel that way." The relief and joy on Claire's face was evident as the mystery of the headstones was finally solved, and the truth brought peace to their lives. Jorge and Claire decided to take their relationship further, finding comfort and love in each other. Two hearts that had been tested by adversity, but were now united in the hope of a shared future. Samantha and Emma witnessed the happiness that blossomed between them and were as supportive as they could be. They were happy to see that after such tumultuous times, joy was blossoming in their lives again. On a sunny afternoon, Emma, Claire and Samantha met at the local park, which had now become a symbol of a new beginning. Emma sat on the bench, watching Claire and Samantha play soccer on the lawn. It was wonderful to see the two of them together like this. Emma said as Claire sat beside her to rest. "It feels so good to finally be able to breathe again, as if we've truly left the past behind." Claire smiled as Samantha ran up happily. "Mommy, I couldn't have gotten through all this without you and Samantha. She's like the daughter you never had." Claire's sincere words made Emma see the truth in her eyes, a light that had never been there before. Samantha ran to hug Emma, smiling brightly. "Grandma, Will you play with me?" Emma couldn't help but smile. "Of course, honey. Let's see if you still remember how to play soccer despite her age." Emma stood up and followed Samantha back to the field, feeling the joy she had never experienced before. As they played, Claire looked at Emma with a grateful heart. "You know, Mom, I think we finally understood what really matters. No matter what happens, we're together, and that's the most important thing." Emma joined them in kicking the ball, with Samantha shouting with joy. At the end of the day, as the sun set, the three of them walked home, hand in hand. Emma looked at Claire and Samantha, feeling a wave of love and protection for both of them. "We'll get through this together," she said, squeezing their hands. As a family, step by step, they continued their journey of rebuilding, stronger and more united than ever, ready to face whatever the future brought.